Hey everyone, Gill Gross here post-match. Aryna Sabalenka versus Zheng Qinwen, Australian Open 2024 final. If you're not here for spoilers, click off the video. Sabalenka wins her second career major title, defends her Australian Open title, and this year does it without dropping a single set. She came very close to capping off the most dominant Australian Open title run in this century. Didn't quite get there because Ashley Barty in 2020, in 2022, dropped just 30 games. And Sabalenka, when it was all said and done, had lost 31 games. She wins this final 6-3, 6-2. Very similar score line to the U.S. Open quarterfinal that Sabalenka played against Zheng. But the stakes were raised. It's Sabalenka in a major final as a favorite, and just given the way the last three majors had played out for Aryna, the question mark was going to be, how is she going to handle this mentally? You pretty much knew that if the mental side of things were going to be good and she brought her best level, she wasn't going to lose this final. But again, it just wasn't a given, because the previous three majors, after starting the year with the Australian Open title, at which point I thought that the big match closing demons were completely behind her, she kind of showed that they're not behind her, because there were moments at all three where her level kind of hit rock bottom to a point she wasn't giving herself a chance to win because the tension was making her miss so much. Not even really a hint of that in this match. Barely a hint. When she was serving out the match, she missed 2+1 forehands, and that was basically about it. She ended up holding on to her serve at the first time of asking anyway. So all said and done, razor sharp performance from Sabalenka. Completely passed the test mentally. And you have to wonder at this point, how much do these conditions, the comfort level that she's built, perhaps even the invincibility complex that she may have built up inside Rod Laver Arena, at what point does that override any of the scar tissue that is built up, or the demons that have built up in terms of closing out majors? Because she's now won 27 of her last 28 sets inside Rod Laver Arena. I don't know if she played any on one of the other stadiums, particularly that may have been the case last year when she wasn't the defending champion and the world number 2. But I think Sabalenka's probably gotten to the point where it's like, these are my tennis balls, and this is my court surface, and this is my crowd, and this is my building, and every time I'm here, I'm going to play well. And again, that goes a long way in keeping all the negative thoughts and the bad stuff out of the head. So Sabalenka was awesome in this match. What really stood out to me about her performance is I think it was a great example of how she's mastered aggressive shots into safe targets. And shout out Paul Annacone. That's a phrase that I don't know if he coined it, but he certainly uses it a lot and preaches it. And it's a great one. Zheng in this match actually hit 5 more winners than Sabalenka. It's completely misleading. Completely misleading. Normally, the winner stat is supposed to give us an idea of who is the more aggressive player, offensive, who is the player who did the most, point-ending damage with their aggression. And in this case, the stat flat out lies. It's a liar stat, because clearly Sabalenka was inflicting most of the damage. But what you have to look at in order to kind of unlock, statistically what you would have to look at in order to unlock that reality, is the forced errors, where Sabalenka forced 32 errors and Zheng forced 13. And to me, that's Sabalenka understanding that her pace is going to give her opportunities, and her pace is going to give her finishes, and therefore there is no reason to play close to the lines and risk errors. There simply isn't. She trusts her power now to a point, and she understands her game and her power now to a point where she knows that with how big she's hitting the ball, it does not require super ambitious precision. And if she just keeps it clean, she's going to continue to apply pressure. She's going to find more and more short balls, and she is going to force misses. It also seems like she's simplified her approach as well. Very, very sure of herself. Not a lot of decision-making creativity, which I think is a good thing because, a lot of wide serves usually crush the +1 into the open court. And she was great on the +1 here. She won 84% of her first serve points. Her serving was good. No double faults. So it's gotten to the point where she feels really, really consistent now. And she is really, really consistent now. And it's because she's confident in her decision-making. Her second serve is solid. She doesn't get too flat in terms of, ball trajectory. She doesn't hit too overly ambitious targets. She's made 6 consecutive semifinals now at majors. And I think this is the reason why. Aggressive shots into safe targets. She has mastered it. Zheng's performance here was a little bit flawed. I mean, in the first set, I just think she seemed really put off by Sabalenka's ball speed and was very overmatched in the rallies. Sabalenka came out, and her plan was to hammer the ball into Zheng's forehand side. And she got misses from Zheng, but more importantly, she kept getting balls hit into the kill zone. So the thing that really stood out to me about the first set is when Sabalenka went big into the forehand, Zheng couldn't get the ball out of the middle of the court. So it was Aryna just getting another ball to lace. Zheng not able to turn the point around, and ultimately she would crumble under the pressure of Sabalenka's big aggressive ball striking off the ground. In the second set, I do think the match changed a little bit in terms of complexion, not in a favorable way for Zheng, but at least she got used to Sabalenka's pace. And she started really challenging Sabalenka in the extended baseline rallies, absorbing a lot better to me. But Zheng, who served phenomenally well in the first set, I mean, really well, she got broken in her opening service game and didn't really give Sabalenka a chance to break serve after that because she was hitting her singularly, her serve so well and getting so many free points that Sabalenka couldn't stretch her lead at any point. In the second set, it was kind of a shame because I think she found a rhythm from the baseline and then she totally lost her serve. 44% first serves in, 3 double faults in the first game where she got broken, and she was up 30-love first game of the second set. She had been holding her serve since the start of the first. I felt like there was something brewing here, and then double fault, double fault, double fault, break a serve. So if you're going to point to a moment where the match totally got away, that was it. And then at 3-1, she throws in another game with multiple double faults. The Zheng serve is going to be the most interesting part of her development. She's got a real weapon there, and she always has had it. But the technique has gone through multiple iterations. She's clearly got a live arm. She gets really good. She uses the big muscles well. Like she has good hip and shoulder rotation, really good leg drive, and she has the height. So the serve has a ton of pop, but there's no consistency. And I think there are technical flaws that are resulting in the lack of consistency. The toss, the way she throws the toss, and then the resulting control of the toss. And I don't know about how she opens up the racket face in the trophy position. That's usually a no-no. Now, maybe she'll be someone who just kind of breaks that rule and is able to hit great serves while breaking that general technical rule. We see that all the time, and it's not as if, if a shot works. But that's what makes Zheng's serve so interesting moving forward is, okay, we have a weapon here. Oh, and there's also a hitch. It's not fluid. But we have a weapon here. How much do we mess with it? And it's a real question because in some ways, Zheng Qinwen is a great server, and she just led the Australian Open in aces. So how much are we going to change a shot that just saw her lead the Australian Open in aces? It's interesting what they're going to do. I don't know. And then big picture with Zheng, I want to say, I was having a conversation first week of January that I now remember really well in the control room at Tennis Channel with my colleague Jeff Chisover. And we were agreeing that Zheng is a future Slam champion. This was the first week of January. So now she's thrusted into this final. She gets beaten really badly, and she had an easy draw. She had an easy path. So I think the question is going to be, is she for real, right? Or was this a draw, a little bit of a draw, big hitter got hot, fluky situation? And what I want to say is it's a little bit in the middle. The way I look at it is she got draw help, and as a result of her draw help, she arrived ahead of schedule. However, that schedule was always going to put her on a track where she was going to be in these massive matches at the end of majors eventually. Like, I just have full confidence in that. So I think this result will age, and the legacy of this will be she's a great player worthy of Slam finals who just got there a little bit too soon on this occasion. That said, I think the fact that she had this experience and she got there too soon and she took advantage of her draw is experience that's going to help her and drive her moving forward. And also, I do think it's impressive that as the seeded players on her half of the draw started dropping as flies around her, and she quickly became the favorite to make the final of the Australian Open, that she did hold it together and kept her level in a really good place, even was able to overcome some adversity in her quarterfinal against Anna Kalinskaya and beats Yastremska in the semis. And Yastremska had much less to lose, in my opinion, in that match than Zheng. So this is a really good job by a young player who suddenly had expectations on her that she would not have been used to still navigate through and get to the final where she faced her first top 50 opponent. That's how I look at it for Zheng. For Sabalenka, if she continues to outperform everyone else at the Slam, she's going to be seen as the alpha regardless of what the rankings say. We're getting to a point where her consistency in making semis and finals and now tacking on the all-important second major title, which is a huge difference maker from a legacy standpoint. I think there's obviously the biggest difference is from 0 to 1. And then after that, the biggest difference is from 1 to 2. And then it continues, I think, to decrease in the amount that your legacy is changed and shifted with each major title, right? Like there's not as much of an example of a difference between, let's say, 5 and 6 as there is between 0 and 1 and 1 and 2. So anyway, obviously that's huge. But I guess my point is, if you're looking at the top of the game, particularly measuring Sabalenka up with Swiatek, again, at a certain point, if this continues at the hardcourt majors, and if Iga doesn't have something to say about this at a Wimbledon and an Australian Open and a U.S. Open, I do think Sabalenka is going to start to be seen as the alpha in that rivalry. And this is kind of a step towards that. That hasn't happened yet. I want to be clear. It hasn't happened yet. I'm just saying that's kind of the trend, in my opinion. I do want to see how well Sabalenka can do after once again starting the year with a major title. I want to see how well she can do if she stays completely solid mentally all the way through. I don't know if it's going to happen, But I'm just looking at her game and what she's capable of. And what my curiosity is, what are the possibilities for Sabalenka if she's able to bring her best level and completely stabilize in the nerve management aspect at the end of majors? How well can she do? That's what I want to see. And I'm once again, after seeing this, hopeful that maybe at some point in her career, maybe this year, we can see Sabalenka go through a season and not allow the mental stuff to hold her back whatsoever, and see what kind of talking just her abilities can do, see what kind of heights her abilities can get her to. Only time will tell, because Australia at this point seems to have some vibes with her that aren't going to exist at every stop on tour. And certainly that was the case here. So congratulations to Aryna and her fans. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.